Once upon a time, in the great city of Jaw, lived a wealthy family with only one son, Michael. Michael was eager to marry and sought a responsible woman. With this in mind, he took the risky choice to disguise himself and relocate to a nearby village in search of a compatible companion. Jaw was known for its richness, making it extremely difficult to find a compatible match in G City. Despite Michael's parents' intense opposition to his proposal, unable to comprehend their son, heir to a vast empire, living as a beggar in a tiny village, Michael persisted. He persuaded them that his celebrity in J City would attract women who would go to any length to win his heart, including concealing their actual identities. Michael's parents eventually relented, giving him 2 years to return with a bride. Failure to do so would result in them choosing a spouse for him, giving him no say in the matter. Michael accepted his new character, allowing his hair and beard to grow untidy, giving the impression of a wretched man. With his new appearance, he went to the market and bought some cheap apparel before setting out for the neighboring village. When I arrived at the bus station, the driver asked about my destination. After a minute of reflection, Michael responded, "I was once a merchant, but I lost everything I owned. I'm looking for a village where people are kind and I can start over." Touched by Michael's suffering, the driver recommended driving him to his home hamlet, where caring people lived. Michael gratefully accepted the offer and boarded the bus. After a long trek, they arrived in a village very different from Jaw City, underdeveloped but with essential services. The driver then took Michael to his home and introduced him to his wife and children. After the driver explained his situation, his wife gladly welcomed Michael into their house. Michael didn't grumble about the little, drab room that had been provided for him. The next day, he set out on his mission to find a responsible lady to marry. Adapting to their way of life became difficult, but he was determined to see it through. Securing a job was his first goal, and he eventually found one at Market Square. Michael set to work, tasked with transporting food from the market to clients' homes via wheelbarrow. The market was well designed, making his task reasonably simple. However, the majority of those he offered his services to were nasty and unkind. They looked down on him because of his appearance and profession. After a year and 6 months in the village, Michael was about to give up hope of finding a responsible bride. After 2 years, he resigned himself to accepting whatever bride his parents selected for him. He told the driver about his wish to take a bride. Michael, disheartened by his harsh interactions with women over the last 18 months, was ready to settle. The driver encouraged him not to give up hope, suggesting he visit different marketplaces where he could meet new people. However, he warned Michael that wheelbarrow pushers were not well compensated. A week later, while looking for clients in the suggested markets, Michael came upon 2 ladies who had recently completed their purchases. He volunteered to assist them carry their belongings, and they agreed. Their names were Loved and Grace. While Loved was harsh to Michael, Grace was kind. As he carried his groceries to their house, Loved continually reminded him not to drop anything, while Grace advised him to be mindful of the bumpy road. When Loved arrived at their house, he stepped inside and left Grace to manage the stuff. Michael offered to help with the assignment. Once finished, he asked Grace why her sister was so disrespectful and delegated all of the job to her. "She's my stepsister and older than I am," Grace explained. "I suppose it's my responsibility to do as she instructs." Their talk lasted until Loved reappeared to pay. She dumped the money on the floor, mocking Michael as a beggar. Then she went inside the house. Grace apologized for her sister's nasty behavior and thanked Michael for assisting her with the assignment. Michael learned from their talk that Grace had endured adversity, her mother had died years before, and her father had remarried, leaving her at the mercy of her stepmother, Helena. Despite being tortured and treated like a slave, Grace had nowhere else to turn. Despite Loved's physical beauty, Michael was greatly captivated to Grace's sweet and humble personality. The next day, Michael inquired about Grace with the driver's wife, who spoke well of her. Everyone in the village admired Grace, but her nasty stepmother prevented her from marrying. Helena would disparage Grace to any potential suitors, causing them to reconsider their decision. Michael was moved by Grace's suffering and vowed to marry her. The next day, he eagerly waited for Grace to arrive at the market with his wheelbarrow. However, days passed without her appearance until a week later, when he found her alone in the market. He quickly approached her and offered to carry the sack she was holding in his wheelbarrow. Grace objected, "It's not too heavy, I can manage. Besides, I don't have any money to pay you today. Please do not worry. I will serve you for free." Michael insisted on following her while she made her purchases, then assisting her in transporting the items home, stopping short of her compound to avoid catching Helena's attention. For the next 3 months, whenever Grace went to the market, she spent more time with Michael, enjoying their company. Helena, seeing Grace's regular absences, asked Love to keep a watch on her. On the day Love was assigned to monitor Grace, Michael revealed his feelings for her and proposed marriage on the way home from the market. Grace was surprised by Michael's statement. "But you don't know me," she objected. "Grace, I know you are kind and generous, and I want you in my life. Please say you'll marry me," Michael insisted. "You're equally hardworking and benevolent, but I'm afraid my stepmother wouldn't make it easy for you," she said. "Do not worry about her. If you feel the same way I do, I'll handle the rest," Michael promised her. Grace accepted Michael's proposal, although being unaware about what he meant. Overjoyed, Michael picked her up and embraced her tightly, unknowing that Love was watching them from a distance. Love approached and giggled at the couple's embrace. A beggar fell in love with a slave. But you make an ideal couple. I think you're a good match. Don't worry, my mom will hear about it, Love said before walking away, leaving Grace and Michael surprised. Michael consoled Grace and accompanied her home to meet her stepmother, Helena. Helena was waiting for Grace when she arrived and slapped her before ordering her to kneel in the sun. Michael had a burst of fury and grief. Out of frustration, he confessed his love for Grace and expressed his desire to marry her. Helena scoffed derisively, dismissing Michael's financial situation. Undeterred, Michael requested a list of wedding-related things, promising to furnish them within a week. Helena, offended by Michael's confidence, swiftly jotted down an expensive list of items and flung it at him. As Grace picked up the list, she was astounded by the exorbitant requirements. Michael quietly grabbed the list and promised to return in a week. Helena laughed scornfully, figuring that a mere wheelbarrow pusher could not buy the products. Later that afternoon, Michael returned to the driver's residence and requested to be driven back to G City. When he arrived in the city, he led the driver to a prominent company, which surprised him. As Michael entered the company, the guards quickly escorted him inside, surprising the driver. Michael told the guards to pay the driver well before meeting his father in his office. Michael's mother entered the office at the same time as a lovely lady, both astonished to discover Michael in his unkempt state. "Mom and Dad, I have found the woman I want to marry. You offered me 2 years, but I completed it in just a year and 10 months, Michael revealed. His father hugged him joyously, while his mother seemed dissatisfied. The lady who accompanied Michael's mother stormed out of the office, followed by Michael's mother. Confused by the circumstance, Michael's father said that his mother had already chosen someone for him to marry before he began his quest. Nevertheless, Michael's father warmly welcomed him and gave him permission to marry Grace. 1 week later, Michael returned to the driver's village with a procession of luxury automobiles and a bullion van carrying all of Helena's list. Michael's display of wealth astonished both the driver and his family. Michael gave the driver a new automobile and a large sum of money to help him support his family before seeing Helena and Loved. Both were surprised to see Michael looking young and handsome, in stark contrast to the untidy image they had grown accustomed to. The bullion van arrived in front of their residence, and muscular guys started unloading its contents. Grace was equally astonished by Michael's change and angered that he had lied to her about his true status. Michael ran after her, appealing for her forgiveness, and explains his reasoning. Grace forgiven him and hugged him before getting into one of the cars. Despite Love's attempts to be nice after witnessing Michael's sudden money, he ignored her and drove away. Back in G City, Michael took Grace to the top hair salon and fashion brand, enhancing her attractiveness even further. Grace appeared more gorgeous after completion than Loved or the lady his mother had brought him. Michael introduced Grace to his family, and his father welcomed her as a daughter-in-law. Despite her initial worries, Michael's mother appreciated his decision and accepted Grace into the family. Within a month, they had the most extravagant wedding of the year, which became the talk of the town for weeks. Their wedding was a lavish affair, and they lived happily ever after. The moral of the story is to always be humble and diligent in our work. Kindness and kindness can open doors of opportunity, as seen by Michael's acts toward the driver. In a terrible world, being kind can provide surprising benefits. If you love this touching story, please subscribe to our channel for more inspirational stories like this one. Please share this with your friends and leave a comment in the mailbox below to let us know what you think. Your support means everything to us as we continue to convey optimism and joy through our stories. Thank you for taking part in our adventure.